welcome to the February going into March 2024 edition of Prairie Vistas. I'm Education Services Manager Tim Wollenzine.
And I'm Education Services Associate Nick Lero.
As you can see, Nick and I are now appearing on camera. Kind of feels like we're on TV, huh?
Well, it does a little bit, and you know, that's quite serendipitous of you to mention.
Well, why is that?
Well, because this episode, we're going to be looking at some productions from all around the state of Minnesota, all of which have one thing in common.
They're all funded by the Arts and Cultural Heritage Fund from the Minnesota's Legacy Amendment of 2008?
Yeah, right on the taxpayers' money.
Well, what do these have to do with education?
Well, I'm glad you asked. We'll be singling out one production each from all 6 PBS member stations that have content on PBS LearningMedia, which, of course, is PBS's hub of over 30,000 free educational resources.
Okay, great. Now, this whole amendment thing, what exactly is it?
Well, with the help of our resident amendment expert, John Gast, I've prepared an overview of the amendment that's easy to understand. And also, before we dive in, if you're watching this live, feel free to ask us a question or send us a comment in the chat to the right of the video. We're both available to answer any questions you may have during this webinar. So without further ado, let's take a look at Minnesota's legacy. On November 4th, 2008, the Clean Water, Land, and Legacy Amendment, sometimes referred to as the Legacy Amendment or Minnesota's Legacy, was approved by Minnesotan voters. Beginning on July 1st, 2009 through June 30th, 2034, a sales tax increase of 0.3% was induced as funding for the amendment, which has 4 separate funds that get differing amounts of revenue. The Clean Water Fund and the Outdoor Heritage Fund get 33% each. The Arts and Cultural Heritage Fund receives 19.75%, and the Parks and Trails Fund gets 14.25%. Prairie Public receives grants from the Arts and Cultural Heritage Fund, which supports public television stations like Prairie Public throughout the state of Minnesota. Funding is applied towards a number of projects, including series like Prairie Musicians and Prairie Mosaic, documentaries, and educational projects like our professional development sessions and PBS LearningMedia uploads. Everything we do that uses Legacy Amendment funding is free and readily available to the public, as this is a focal point of Prairie Public's mission, as well as a goal of the amendment. As part of ensuring these funds are used appropriately, we evaluate our project's success in a number of ways, including viewership, surveys, and attendance at events. Look for the logo. You'll see it on anything produced by Minnesota's Legacy. Before we dive into the educational resources that have been made with Legacy funding, I'd like to remind you that much of our Legacy-produced content is available for free online on the Prairie Public YouTube page, which is in the description below the video. Series you'll see include Prairie Musicians, Prairie Mosaic, Black Histories of the Northern Plains, and Artifact Spotlight. Many will have resources available to educators for free on PBS LearningMedia.
Part of what we do here at Prairie Public involves creating educational resources for PBS LearningMedia, which fulfills the part of our joint mission with the Arts and Cultural Heritage Fund that makes our content free and readily available online.
That's right, Tim. And as I said, we're not the only ones doing that. Our Minnesota sister stations all have content on PBS LearningMedia. Within the last year, the folks at LearningMedia have made it required that all new resources must include 2 support materials, which are resources attached to the things we upload that help with using said item in the classroom.
So some resources on LearningMedia will have more support materials than others? Yes?
Yeah, and that's correct. And you know, I think we ought to show our viewers just what we're talking about.
I agree. In just a moment, you'll see footage from one video from every Minnesota station that has educational resources available on LearningMedia. After the videos, we'll take a look at these resources as part of our mission to give educators like you free digital access to educational resources.
The original Homestead Act of 1862, as passes through Congress, says that to claim your free piece of land, you must be the head of your household, which generally means a man, but of course there is the opportunity for women, if they are single, widowed, divorced, to claim a piece of land. Women did indeed homestead on their own.
Dear Joan, I have arrived. After many and diverse stages, I am on my claim. the southwest quarter of Section 6, Township 145, Range 94, with a rice pudding boiling on the parlor cook stove.
The issues of human health and light at night are so important. The American Medical Association has recommended that street lighting be 3,000 Kelvin or warmer. So this is especially important because about half of our light pollution is street lighting and another third is parking lot lighting. And a lot of these lights are on when nobody is using them. So this is another opportunity for technology to come in and have lights on only when people are using them. And that'll offer a huge amount of energy savings.
What we're bringing back today is that floral work, the Dakota floral. We see more of that now. And I see that coming back more and more instead of just the geometric patterns that often adorned our regalia. We see more of that Dakota floral. And we see the quill work coming back, beautiful porcupine quill work that's coming back. It all speaks to a people and a tradition, but I think it also reflects who that person is too. Because when you look at something, it speaks to you. If you make something, you're speaking. That's creator speaking through you. Whatever your creativity is, you're making something. How they use their color, where they place things.
Whole bag. This is a bag that is full of beautiful clothes that I think this lady is over 80 that made this for the little kids at the orphanage. Isn't it beautiful? This is just 25% of the things that she made. So these ones are going to Africa this week. Look at these comforters. She made them, pray over them. So nice. When you want to be a little girl wearing this. So these are some of the things that Minnesotans do, you know, that is so nice. And this is a native Minnesotans that did this.
We then moved to the East Coast. I was in New Haven, Connecticut for 1 year and then in New York City for 4 years. We then moved to San Francisco, California. And all of those moves were DIY in a truck. And we didn't own a car for the entire time that we lived in New York City. So that made it easier. It was just the two of us in the truck and our stuff from our one-bedroom apartment in the back. It was certainly interesting for me as an outsider to see just how different life is in different parts of the states, having lived in Houston and then the East Coast and then the West Coast and now in Rochester. It's definitely a never-ending learning process about the fabric of the United States, how much the different regions differ in their composition of people of different backgrounds and attitudes.
Brother, this is delicious, man. Like, everything just works so well together, dude. And it's not something I eat and then I'm gonna feel heavy. It's actually really light.
So this is one of the many ways Somali food is served. Immigrants don't just bring burden, but they bring great ideas, food, things that make us human, right? I mean, once you learn about food, right, you'll learn about the similarities you share with other cultures.
Yeah, stuff like this
is what brings us together.
Yeah, man. And then, like, even like we're going to the market, dude. Like I said, I walk in there and I'm looking at the spices. I'm like, dude, I know all these spices.
Absolutely, right?
We use it differently, but I know all these spices.
You're familiar with it. That's the thing that we need to look at, is the things that make us human.
Now that we've seen the videos, which of course are just a small sample of the legacy-funded content you can find on PBS LearningMedia, let's take a look at the support materials for them. For Homesteading, from yours truly at Prairie Public, we have resources that fall under Materials for Teachers and For Use with Students. These mean exactly what they say. Materials for teachers are used for teacher use, while For Use with Students is used in the classroom, mostly in the form of activities and assessments. As we can see here, we offer further sources for reading on the topic of women in homesteading. For students, these discussion questions can be used in a full class discussion or as individual assessment questions, or however else you'd like to use them. For Northern Nights, these teacher tips are a common teacher material type you'll see. These give you ideas on how to use the support materials made for student use. Check out these activities. Both of them can be printed out and used like handouts. There's also discussion questions and vocabulary. Saksanica is formatted differently, but contains a great deal of support materials. In the traditional place you'll find support materials, there are discussion questions and a vocabulary list. This form of resource is called a media gallery, which means there are multiple resources available in a gallery format. But in the media gallery, there are more in-depth materials. First, we have this compare and contrast activity. Then, there is a guide for teachers on what the essential understandings are for this lesson, as well as other pertinent pieces of information. Then, there's a full lesson plan that, as you can see, is very comprehensive. Finally, there is another video. For Fortuna Alexander, there's one support material, but it is quite thorough. Talking Points goes over information that teachers should know beforehand. Facilitator Guide prepares the teacher for how to guide students through using this resource. Then we have both activity prompts and discussion questions, which go hand in hand, as from here, the teacher can create their lessons using these activities and questions. Finally, just like with homesteading, there are additional resources available if you'd like to know more. Lily Wagner is in the same template format as Fortuna, so naturally, if one were to use either resource, it'd be very easy to include the other, or others from this collection called Moving Lives Minnesota. One thing I'd like to point out is the before and after format of the activities. Finally, with Relish, there are your typical support materials, but most relevant is the recipe itself. This would make an excellent hands-on activity, and could even get cross-curricular if you have a home ec type class with cooking resources available at your school.
Minnesota's legacy has provided us with a lot of really excellent content, but some educators still ask us how all of this comes together. So here's a brief overview.
First, our production team at Prairie Public plans their season long before anything is shot or edited. When they decide what these topics will be for the new documentaries, our education team begins planning how the educational content and support materials will be created.
And these support materials include things like discussion questions, lesson plans, background readings, and classroom activities. Some of these are composed by the education team, while others come from teacher partners in our region who lend their expertise in many subject areas.
Once the support materials are complete, we begin the process of uploading the videos and the support materials to the PBS LearningMedia platform. Our colleagues at PBS evaluate our content and ultimately green-light it for publication on LearningMedia.
When all the pieces have come together, we let our audience know through our website, newsletters, workshops, and social media.
That sums it up nicely, and we hope that you've learned a little more about how Prairie Public and our Minnesota sister stations get our content in your classrooms.
For more information, please visit our website, prairiepublic.org/education.
Well, that's the end of this episode. What's coming up next month?
Next month, we'll be taking a look at the STEM resources available to educators from Prairie Public, Minnesota's Legacy, as well as our trusted partners.
Excellent. On behalf of both Nick and I, as well as Prairie Public, I'd like to thank our sister stations, TPT Twin Cities, PBS North in Duluth, Lakeland PBS in Bemidji, Pioneer PBS in Granite Falls, and KSMQ in Austin.
Also, thank you to our fellow employees here helping us out, the production team, as well as John Gast for his expertise on the Legacy Amendment.
And remember, if you, the viewer, have any questions or comments, feel free to drop them in the chat on the right if you're watching this live, or in the comments below after the video has premiered.
We're also available via email at education@prairiepublic.org, as well as on our social media pages linked below. Thank you for watching. From Nick,
Tim,
and the rest of Prairie Public,
have a cool and educational day. Learn something.